And that's one of the reasons why sales got a negative perception, is because sales actually was seen in the beginning as this noble profession that you were helping people, you were of service to others. And then the depression happened and all of the warehouses started filling up with their stuff. And you had all of these salespeople everywhere and everyone was desperate, financially speaking. And when the companies are pressuring them to say whatever you have to do and whatever you have to say to get this stuff out of our warehouse. We're going into Q4 and everyone's feeling the pressure to meet the number, quote unquote. And what's interesting is that there's research that shows that when you're under financial pressure, especially in sales, that the less experience that you have, the more likely you are to compromise on your own values and integrity and maybe sell someone something that they shouldn't have bought or sold to someone that wasn't the right fit. And that you're more likely to make those kinds of calls and mistakes when you're under that financial pressure, right? Like that's just normal. And so as sellers, we need to remember that and to act on our integrity and our values. As we're seeing the uncertainties that are happening in our economies around the world, that we have to remember that, because this too will pass and your customers will remember how you acted when the stuff was hitting the fan, so to speak. And I think as leaders, we also need to remember what kind of environment and pressure are we putting on our people that would cause them to compromise their values and create a culture to do anything, to say anything to get the sale. And maybe re-gauge and recalibrate how you're thinking about that and how you're hiring for that and how you're training for that and the culture that you're creating as a result of that. The testimony that Regina just gave me on LinkedIn about how we were able to reorganize the sales and double their growth quarter after quarter after that, they ended up getting acquired. And she says it's because of the analysis we did and the strategy that they did and how they implemented it. But this is where it really comes down to what kind of a leader you are, I think, especially in times like these. Because Regina was the one who said to everyone on our team when we did the analysis and the not so good news that it had, she didn't turn around and blame it on this, that, or the next thing. She took ownership of it and said, this is on us. We are the ones that created this. We are the ones that have allowed this. We are the ones that have developed this, and we are the ones who need to change it. And that is exactly what they did. That is the kind of leadership that we need in like Q4 and now, and how that plays down all the way to the interactions that salespeople are having with their customers. It will get remembered. This is the real world. So it applies to it applies to whether you're an entrepreneur who has to sell, whether you're a salesperson in a company, where you're a sales manager or a sales leader and C-suite executive. This all applies in each role, of course, in different contexts, in different ways, but they are all interconnected. No silos.
When you say no to your buyers when it's not a good fit, you build instant trust. This is where I see so many, both professional sellers as well as entrepreneurs, start to slip up a little bit. Because we sometimes get overwhelmed with the amount of information that our buyers have shared with us. And then it's like we're trying to wade through this puzzle of answers to actually understand, how do I position and align their needs to how we're going to help them? Now, notice that I don't say your solution. Because our responsibility after going through this process is to be able to say, you know what, I don't think that this is the best fit for you based on how you like to work and what you're looking for and what you're willing to invest. I suggest that you work with so-and-so and refer them. They're going to be more likely to refer you to other people because they know they're not going to just say yes to everyone.
So here's the thing about saying no to prospects, to buyers, when they're not really a good fit for you, is that a lot of people have twisted it to be this kind of bait and switch. Oh, I'm going to close your file. Or no, I don't think that we're a good fit for you, with the intention of, we're just going to try and get you to talk yourself into it. But what saying no really does, and sticking by it, shows that you have boundaries that you won't cross, that there are things that you will say no to because they either don't align with what you do or with your values. And that's why it builds trust with people, because you won't just say yes to everything. You're not the yes person, because nobody really trusts the yes person, because they hear you saying yes to everything and then they wonder, well, what is it that you're really all about? And so saying no really is about creating boundaries. And I think this applies to both business, but it also applies in our personal lives. Because when I'm coaching clients who have a hard time saying no and they want to try and work with everyone, a lot of times it stems from a need for validation or a need for approval. And for business owners and startup founders, this is especially difficult because you're selling yourself and your ideas and how you think you can make the world a better place. And when someone says no to it, it does feel a little personal. And so we often start off with wanting to work with everyone because we want that validation or need that validation. Totally normal and human. But what happens is that, again, when you say yes to everyone, you're not creating the value for the people that you can help the most. And by saying no in our personal lives, it also establishes those boundaries where you won't say yes to everything and to everyone, because then you have nothing left. The other reason that we have to say no to establish those boundaries is to also preserve our own energies. When you say no to a client who's not a good fit, then that means that you have more energies for the clients who are, that aren't going to burn out your team or destroy your profitability because they weren't the right fit for you to begin with. So there's so many reasons why we should practice saying no. What often happens though is that we feel like we're going to make the other person feel bad, or we don't know how to say no and not sound like an. Here's the thing, is there are very tactful ways that you can say no. And as my friend Katie McDonald liked to say, no is a complete sentence. You don't need to justify it, but you can soften it. So for example, something as simple as somebody says, hey, you want to go out to dinner on Friday night? No, I really don't. Maybe you can say, you know what? Normally I might want to, but I'm trying to take some time to decompress at the end of my week so I can show up for my family on the weekends, maybe another time or another day. Or, you know what? We have a budget that we're sticking to, and I have a calorie budget that I'm sticking to. So my waistline and my bottom line can't afford to go out on Friday night. There are simple ways that you can say no without sounding like an a-hole. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it, and do it often, because the more you say no, the more you establish your boundaries, the more people are likely to trust you.